Families in Bridgeport, Connecticut have been stonewalled by officials while waiting for important information leading to their loved ones. Years in some cases. It's an issue that led to an investigation by our next guest. This years-long investigation has been recognized as a finalist in the Scripps Howard Awards for journalistic excellence. The awards sponsored by our parent company, E.W. Scripps. One of the investigative journalists who have looked into this story for Hearst Connecticut Media, Jacqueline Rabe Thomas. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today. First, for those who haven't read through the story as of yet, what were you able to find in this investigation?
Sure. So this story really started from hearing from families who just weren't able to get records from those that were responsible for investigating the deaths that they were of their loved ones. But more importantly, they weren't even notified that their loved ones had died. They had to find out from landlords, neighbors, etc., not from the police. And then once they did find out, they wanted to know if their cases were being investigated, what the causes of death were, all the things that a family would want to know when someone dies. And they weren't given answers for years. And, the state law was passed to make sure that families are now notified throughout the state, because that was a problem in these two instances where two women died on the same day in the state's largest city and their families weren't notified. But then we started to hear from these families about how they weren't able to even find out if there was an investigation, what happened to the investigation. For all they knew, the investigation was still going. And so Hearst, Connecticut, where I work, we decided to look into just how often are families just sort of left wondering of what happened to their cases, to their loved ones, and found several cases that they were just stonewalled when they tried to get records at the local police department or the city hall, and found things like someone, not even always just crime, things like someone running for office in Bridgeport wanting to get the voter rolls just so they could send out flyers to make sure that people knew when election day was, or get out the vote type of things, and weren't able to get those records from the local
Why was that?
city halls.
What was the main reason you were saying as to why there was this stonewall?
Yeah, so I don't want to say there was anything nefarious going on, because nothing that we found in the records showed that there was an intentional effort. It seems like it was more of just the process of everything needed to go through one city attorney in City Hall to sign off, to make sure that they weren't releasing any records that shouldn't be released, for things like a victim being named in there. There's a whole host of reasons why police records or other public records will be redacted or information will be withheld. But in the state's largest city, they had one person actually doing that redaction. And so there was a huge backlog. We found thousands of cases of people asking for records that were just waiting for years for anything to hear back.
We have just about 30 seconds left, but what do you hope other journalists take away from why you took on this story?
As journalists, we hear all the time about all the records that you're not able to get. And then when you hear from families on a regular basis that they're not getting the answers they deserve, it might be time for a transparency story to try to get things to change a little bit. The law changed after the series ran in Connecticut, and now cities like Bridgeport and Connecticut and other cities aren't able to really stonewall people anymore. The laws have changed to improve things for folks.
And it's so great to see journalism have an impact like this. Jacqueline Rabe Thomas, investigative reporter with Hearst Connecticut Media. Thank you for your time and congratulations.
Thank you.